Water Conference, we must focus on 3 accelerators to attain the SDGs, and we must race to these. First, we must accelerate the realization of human rights to water and sanitation. This requires incorporating these rights into national legal frameworks and budgets to ensure no one is left behind, particularly women and girls who bear the burden of water collection. Second, we must increase system resilience. With climate change causing extreme weather events, we must prioritize financing the climate-resilient infrastructure and strengthen the humanitarian development nexus to protect the most vulnerable. And then third, we must strengthen our watch systems. We need robust regulation, monitoring, and accountability systems. We need concerted reforms to improve watch systems for more professionalized and financially credible service delivery. Above all, we need a strong collective system leadership to accelerate progress on the continent. In Ghana, we are aligning all actors, including development partners, NGOs, the private sector, and government agencies under one national plan to avoid fragmentation and ensure efficient resource use. Distinguished colleagues, the road to 2026 UN Water Conference begins here. Let us bring our passion and our
Dear friends, it is a huge honor for Switzerland to be co-chairing this interactive dialogue together with Ghana. And I thank the Deputy Minister for the compelling framing of water and sanitation as a human right. In this context, allow me please to pay tribute to Catarina de Albuquerque, the first UN Special Rapporteur on the human right to safe drinking water and sanitation. Catarina played a decisive role in securing international recognition of these rights. Her legacy continues to guide our collective work as she left us way too early in October last year. We are grateful to Senegal for hosting us in Dakar as we launch the Water for People dialogue on the road to the 2026 UN Water Conference. For Switzerland, water is fundamentally about dignity, safety, and stability. It is about ensuring that essential services reach those most in need, in all contexts. Yet, despite progress, and we've heard it, billions of people still lack access to drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene, particularly in fragile, conflict-affected, and vulnerable settings. Sanitation, too often the neglected pillar of SDG 6, deserves particular attention. It is central to public health, education, dignity, and gender equality, and must remain firmly at the heart of our discussions along drinking water. This dialogue builds on the outcomes of the 2023 UN Water Conference and focuses on the SDG 6 targets related to drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, and water quality, acknowledging the strong links with literally all other SDGs. When water and sanitation systems fail, progress elsewhere is quickly undermined. Switzerland's approach to water is people-centered and integrated, guided by 3 priorities. First, participation, inclusion, and local capacity. Sustainable services depend on meaningful community engagement, inclusive governance, and strong local institutions. This requires investment in local capacities, reliable data, and long-term operation and maintenance across rural, urban, and fragile contexts. Second, humanitarian wash and the protection of water infrastructure. In armed conflict and protracted crisis, water and sanitation systems often are damaged or deliberately targeted. Respect for international humanitarian law, including the protection of civilian water infrastructure, is essential to save lives, prevent disease, and reduce long-term harm while strengthening the humanitarian development nexus. And third, mobilizing, financing, and partnerships. Persistent underinvestment remains a major obstacle to achieving SDG 6. Switzerland therefore supports diversified, transparent, and accountable financing combined with strong partnerships across governments, local authorities, civil society, research institutions, youth, and the private sector, as well as international organizations. So today's roundtable aims to ground our future interactive dialogue in evidence, identify priority actions, and shape a collaborative, results-oriented process. Together with Ghana, Switzerland is committed to ensuring that today's discussions meaningfully inform the 2026 UN Water Conference. Allow me to conclude with a simple conviction. Water for people means leaving no one behind. In developing contexts, in fragile settings, and in times of crisis. Achieving this will require sustained political commitment, coherent policies, strong partnerships, and a continued focus on people, their rights, and the systems that must serve them over the long term. I really look forward to a constructive, forward-looking exchange. Thank you. So let me now briefly explain the structure of the rest of the session. We will have two eminent experts setting the scene. Then we will go into a panel discussion, and after that, a plenary exchange with member states and stakeholders. Let me now turn to our colleagues from two organizations who have helped prepare the ground for today's discussion. I'm pleased to introduce Cecilia Sharp, Director of WASH at UNICEF, and Bruce Gordon, Head of WASH and Health at WHO and Vice Chair of UN Water. They both represent the informal preparatory working group that has drafted also the working paper for this dialogue. Cecilia, the floor is yours. And Bruce, you do that together, yes?
We're going to do it together.
Wonderful.
Thank you to the co-chairs. Fantastic to have you on board. And thank you for the introduction and setting already the scene for this interactive dialogue. And we are really looking forward to continue on this path to UAE and the conference in December, working together with you on water for people and this interactive dialogue. And WHO and UNICEF, we are co-convening this. See, there are so many co here. So we are co-convening the interactive dialogue and the working group who is going to develop the concept paper for the discussion. And as this discussion is a dialogue and it says interactive, we decided to do it together. So maybe Bruce, present yourself, or you want to?
We're going to surprise each other with questions. No, I just wanted to say, maybe just drawing on what our co-chair said, I mean, one of the purposes of our discussion is really to set the scene also for a two-pager, which is in the conference website, which is really kind of laying out some of the preliminary ideas that we can build on. So if you haven't had a chance, please do look at that. But really what we want, and we've wanted for years, is scale and impact.
So did you have a slide?
So maybe I can just relay this slide here. And I think the last session that we saw here, we had Indigenous youth talk about whether the glass is half empty and half full. And it's kind of a perennial kind of situation that we have. And I think in this slide, the first thing I wanted to remark is that, you know, we're fortunate enough to have really credible data sets to inform our discussions. These are really the envy of other sectors. But you do see this progression, this kind of slow progression, which I don't think we should discount. And one of the things that's happened over the last decades is, of course, we've had this incredible population growth of nearly 2 billion people. But we have been able to stay ahead of that, both on sanitation and drinking water and hygiene. So you can see these curves are helping us. We're getting to that place. But what we've also seen, and Cecilia, we've all heard it, is that we're off track. And I think what we'd like to say is let's rethink the word off track, because I don't think we can say we're off track anymore. I think we are really, these SDGs are increasingly out of reach. And what the implications of that is for us to discuss. You'll see from these acceleration scenarios, if you go back, sorry, just one quick one to the last slide. You know, we're talking about accelerating 8 times for drinking water, 6 times for sanitation. And as you can imagine, as the years get closer to 2030, those are increasingly going to look like almost vertical bars. But we're not losing hope. And Cecilia, of course, this is, you know, that's global information, and that kind of mass, like a lot of really, I think, powerful experiences and progress at regional level, but also some persistent, intractable almost problems.
Yes. So For the next slide, please. This is a snapshot from African Union. And I just wanted first to say we have made tremendous progress in the African Union since 2000. There are more than 375 million people who now have access to safely managed drinking water, and 299 million people who have access to safely managed sanitation. These are huge numbers because the requirements to reach, as you know, safely managed are pretty high. It's high standards. So having said that, I think we need also, though, when the numbers are a little bit daunting looking at Africa overall, it is due to the population growth, which has been really fast in Africa. We are now at 1.5 billion people almost in Africa, and those numbers, of course, are masking these amazing numbers that we actually have reached. And then I just wanted to say somehow in the middle of this little bit, so we are seeing the massive population increase. 70% of those are young people. They are between 10 and 30 years of age. And they are the future, of course. And that for me, the youth here is extremely important to understand how can we empower and engage and ensure that they really become the next generation of wash workers. So, but I also wanted to say that we are looking at the orange and yellow bands here, which represent those that have no service or unsafe services. Unfortunately, we see not such a steady increase as for the safely managed, meaning that we have targeted much more on or trying to solve much more of the safely managed. We wanted to move ahead, and I think the story here is really that we have not targeted enough those that are left behind, the marginalized populations, elderly, people with disability, those in vulnerable situations, or hard-to-reach areas. So I think for our discussion, we need to figure out how can we more intentionally reach those marginalized groups to have a real impact of our interventions. So Bruce, maybe you can explain a little bit what this data actually are telling us, and why are we not progressing on inequalities as we plan to? Because it's always been very high on our agenda.
Maybe if we can go to the next slide, I think we're going to zoom in. I don't know if you could see it if you're in the back, but there's a tremendous treasure trove of data from the GLASS report that was mentioned this morning by the UN Water Chair. And of course, countries are really kind of well, I would like to say there's a bit of a mixed result when it comes to taking really concrete measures to do something about the human rights. Because as I think Ghana was saying, we do have this issue of trying to place them in policies. We do have the issue of having them, in constitutions. But when we really look at whether there is actual financial instruments and monitoring associated with really kind of targeting the poorer population, for instance, but you mentioned some other ones, Cecilia, you can see that we're going from kind of around, sort of 60-ish to 90% with that wonderful framing of policies and, kind of legal mechanisms. But when it comes down to actual monitoring through to financing, we're looking about 20%. So there's really a great need and kind of an opportunity here, I think, for all member states to do more with data and kind of focus it where it's needed the most. But what I wanted to know, Cecilia, was we've talked again about the data, right? And again, there's a lot more we can look at, but we're living in a very changed world, and we need to acknowledge that there's a context that may even be different than 2023. Yep. And I'm just wondering, so when we were talking as part of this informal preparatory working group, IPWG, yes, I mean, are we taking these things into account? How are they going to be impacting, this effort?
Yeah. So I'm just saying, so for those of you who were here at the final session of the global opening, you would have heard a little bit about risk and risk perception and what was going on in Davos last week. Because I think we all need to recognize we were developing these sustainable development goals in a different era. It's different. Also, the 2023 UN Water Conference, and when we set ourselves the action agenda, it was a different era. So I think, well, last week, the Global Risk Perception Report was launched, and we heard a little bit about it. But interestingly, if we look at the global risks that are also impacting on our possibility to deliver our services, conflicts and economic confrontation, together with extreme weather events, are still the overarching risks to our societies, communities, but also to our services. Short term, but also over long term. And then, just to say, inequalities, interestingly enough, was ranked across all the global risks as the connector. You could see it in every of the risks, that inequalities is extremely assessed as a very important risk in this landscape. So just to say that with this landscape, with the conflicts, etc., we have more people on the move than ever. And 50 million children are on the move. And when you are on the move, you are robbed on your future, and you're also robbed on your human right to water and sanitation. And then I think that we are also failing. The ultimate sign of poverty and exclusion is what we see in terms of the increase of cholera. Cholera is now spreading among many, many countries, and we also see increasing mortality rates. So as this feels now maybe a little bit daunting, how can we approach this new landscape, Bruce? What kind of things we can do?
Well, I mean, maybe just starting off with one thing we really, well, and maybe move to the next slide, we have to connect dots. And there's been so much work that we've done, you know, in the lead up to 2023. We've talked about some of these data sets, but I almost think of our knowledge on this subject, water for people. I got that. We're going to wrap up in about 40 seconds. But as a race, we've done about 90 meters of it, right? We do not have to we don't have to recreate, as we do this working group, all those meters. And so I think what we need to do is be able to, obviously do the concrete practical actions, but this is about water for people, and it needs to be connected to the other working groups. So politics, finance, I mean, all those things. So I think we draw on what we have,
Yep.
but connect across, Cecilia.
Yes, and I think the last slide now is just to build back to what we already heard Christian saying in the opening somehow. We narrowed down, based on all the things we know, the data, the challenges, etc., to 3 areas where we think we can discuss how we get the biggest impact and we can reach scale. And that's around reducing inequalities and targeting those that are left behind. It is about ensuring investments are fit, can assess and manage risks, are resilient over time, contribute to peace and stability, and then stronger inclusive government system that enable trust and confidence in the sector to reduce risks of investments for WASH. I think that's it.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cecilia and Bruce. And also thanks a lot for the speed wrap-up. We will have time to really go into the depth of these discussions over the next days and months in the run-up to the conference. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator of our exciting panel, Mr. Kala Vairamaruti, Executive Director of the IWA. Kala.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the co-chairs, and thank you for giving me the floor. And it's really a wonderful opportunity for me to be here, and it's great to be here in Senegal. So we now move to the panel discussion, where we're really trying to explore some of the guiding questions that were set out in the Dakar working paper and what you heard just now as well. And the paper clearly states that progress has been made, as was just mentioned now, but we still have billions of people who lack access to safely managed water, sanitation and hygiene. And at the same time, we're now facing a lot of other pressures: climate change, conflicts, fragility and declining financing, and that's widening the inequalities and placing unprecedented stress on our WASH systems. So the guiding questions for this panel is therefore not to focus on restating the challenges, but to really think about how commitments can be translated into enforceable action, how systems can perform under stress, and how we advance the Leave No One Behind agenda in the years leading to 2030. So each panelist in the session will deliver a focused intervention to one of these guiding questions, and I'll try my best to keep to time. The panelists will have about 3 minutes, maybe a little bit more, but we are quite tight on time. So I'd like to first introduce our first panelist, His Excellency Engineer Eric Murithi Muku, who is the Minister for Water and Sanitation and Irrigation of Kenya. And Minister, I would like to invite you to address question 4. As we approach the SDG 6 timeline, we are doing so in a very different global context from which existed at the time of the 2023 UN event. Since then, the crises have intensified and resources have become much more constrained, making the Leaving No One Behind agenda both more urgent, but at the same time more challenging. So my question to you, Minister, is how can we advance the Leave No One Behind agenda before 2030, particularly in light of these changes that we're seeing? Please.
Thank you, moderator, and co-chairs. Thank you so much. Okay, maybe we try the other side. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Senegal won the World Cup now. Do you think the okay? It's good. It's not. Yeah, thank you.
That's working now?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for. It's not working. Thank you so much, the two co-chairs, wonderful job, and the moderator. And it's an honor, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, our development partners. I know we have our diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen, to sit in this high-level panel as we prepare for the 2026 United Nations World Water Conference. And the question on the steps, measures that we are taking, I will speak specifically to the case of my country, where I am very much familiar with our operation. As of today, our water access is around 73%. And access to safely managed sanitation is around 41%. And to achieve the SDG number 6 and to ensure that we are on course with the African Water Vision 2063 and policy that we passed again here in Dakar last year. First, policy becomes very important, and in this case we have developed like 6 to 5 policies. That is the National Water and Sanitation Strategy. We have what we call the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Strategic Plan 2023-2027, and the 4th medium-term plan for the same duration. Kenya has a devolved kind of governance where we have the national government and county government. To that effect, we have the Constitution 2010, and also just last year we formulated the National Sanitation Management Policy, which is a sessional paper that emphasizes on water resource cycle, resource recovery, and circular approach, especially to sanitation management, involving the integration of water resources management and supply, into the sanitation value chain. Secondly, there needs to be a proper plan for the achievement of 100% access. And some of our plans include the national investment plans and infrastructure projects. That is development of projections of the resources required for the next 10 years, that is up to the year 2030. In that case, we developed the National Water and Sanitation Investment Plan to cover the devolved function, that is 47 counties. This is the first of its kind because it's an intergovernmental sector investment program, and it will cost around 995 billion Kenya shillings, and it will be financed through various methods, that is public-private partnerships, capital and commercial markets. We are talking about concessional financing and grants, including household contributions. This financing plan, we also envisaged the need for on-site sanitation, bearing in mind that the initial plan targeted around 80% of sewerage, centralized sewerage treatment systems, and this was revised to around 40% and around 60% going to non-sewered and centralized treatment facilities. There is also need for sector coordination and partnerships, where now we have the Kenya Water Sector Intergovernmental Framework that is implemented, or a guide on how the sector will coordinate going forward between the national government and the county government. We also have what we call the Water and Sanitation Development Partners Group that is chaired by the minister and co-chaired by a specific development partner that ensures there is a coordinated kind of arrangement between the government and our development partners. We also need to have key priorities that we have put in place, and one of them is closing the infrastructure, technology, and service gap. And this is where partnerships with development partners such as the African Development Bank, the World Resource Group, World Bank, and bilaterals between countries such as Netherlands, Denmark, commercial banks, pension funds, and also with the support of Gates Foundation and other partners like the African Population and Health Research Center, to ensure that we develop proper softwares, absorb technology, especially in upcoming and our town, urban centers that are very, very key to our growth and development. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Muga, for presenting all the positive things that are taking place in Kenya. I'd like to now... Oh, sorry. Can you not hear me? Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Minister, for your very valuable intervention and your reflections on what's going on in Kenya and a lot of the positive things. I'd like to move now to human rights, to water and sanitation, and think about how do we progress them. And this is really central to the theme of this dialogue, Water for People. Our second panelist brings the crucial perspective of local government, where human rights to water and sanitation are most sort of directly realized. So I'm very pleased to invite Ms. Rohi Malik Loa, Mayor of Banjul, the Gambia, and representative of ULCG, to share her thoughts on this very important topic. So Mayor Rohi, can I ask you, how do you think the human rights to water and sanitation can best be translated into enforceable policies, laws, budgets, and accountability mechanisms? And as part of that, how can we ensure that the WASH agenda is tied to other key agendas that I'm sure you're very focused on within a city context? Please, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moderator, first and foremost, allow me to read a letter that my community gave me. And it reads, Dear Deputy Minister, thank you for co-moderating this session. It gives justice to local government where the impact of water, shortage, and sanitation are mostly felt by nobody other than women and girls. Thank you for accepting this invitation in solidarity to women and girls. Kind regards, local governments. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, thank you so much, moderator, for asking me a question that is very close to our hearts as local governments. I speak to you today as a mayor, not as an expert, nor as an observer, but as a public authority accountable every day for whether the human right to water and sanitation is real or not. For local governments, the human right to water and sanitation is not a declaration. It is something that either works in people's lives or fail locally. This is why participation matters, not as a procedural exercise, but as a condition for making the human right to water and sanitation real. Water is a human right and a common good. Water is not a commodity like any other. It is a human right, it is a universal common good, and it must be governed as a public service in the public interest. Mr. Moderator, when water is treated only as an infrastructure or only as a market, inequalities grow. When it is governed as a common good, rights can be made real. This requires inclusive governance frameworks where local authorities, communities, and users participate in shaping decisions, not only implementing them. Ladies and gentlemen, where the real gap lies. Many states, just have the minister alluded, have recognized the human right to water and sanitation. Some have enshrined in laws or in their laws or national strategies. Yet, inequalities persist, and in many places, they deepen. Why? Because the gap is not legal. The gap is territorial. And Mr. Moderator, that is a fact. From a local government perspective, and drawing on our daily interaction with communities and youth and service users, we see four recurring disconnects. Governance frameworks that are designed nationally, but not adapted locally. And I heard yesterday a farmer who was in my panel talk about it. When you want to design something in a national form and it does not come down, it cannot work. So again, this is just to emphasize the importance of local government. And this is not, when I talk about local government, I'm not talking about the mayor, I'm talking about us, you sitting there and me sitting here. We are local government because we are the community. Policies that lack operational clarity at city and community level. Responsibilities that are decentralized, but budgets that are not. And accountability systems that stopped at the national level while service delivery happens daily. For the interest of time, the moderator is giving me signal, but honestly, when we talk about local government, colleagues, human rights fail when they are centralized in principle, but decentralized in practice without power, resources, or trust. So that being said, all what we are asking for local government to be included. Madam Moderator, Mr. Moderator, we are ready. Local governments are ready. We are closer to the people. When whatever happened, we felt it, and we take responsibility. Even whereas sometimes it's not our responsibility, but we cannot run away from the people, because the people will meet us at the markets, in the hospitals, at the fields, in the streets. Mayors are crying. Mayors are crying. I grew so old. You know, I am wearing this hair tie. It's not just because I am a Muslim woman, I just want to wear the hair tie. No, because my hair all over is white. Thank you.
Okay, can you... Thank you very much, Mayor Loa, for that very compelling and passionate intervention. It was wonderful. Thank you very much, and I'm sure it resonated with many people in the room. I'd like to now move to Rwanda, and we have Ms. Gemma Maniraruta, who is Director General of the Water and Sanitation Directorate at the Ministry of Infrastructure in Rwanda. And Gemma, I wanted to ask you something a bit broader. You've listened to the presentations here today, and I know that in Rwanda you will be having your Africa Water and Sanitation Leadership Symposium in August, and you're very much involved in the African Water Investment Programme, the AIP. And I just really wanted to ask you, what sort of key lessons do you think you might take away from what's being presented and what's being discussed towards this very important event that you have in Kigali not far from now? So over to you, Gemma.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to convey the greetings from the government of Rwanda and the apologies that the Minister of Infrastructure could not be represented by the Minister, who was caught up by other equally tasks at the last minute. However, you are in good hands because I was the one in charge directly at national level. Yeah, so maybe to talk specifically, I will be talking specifically on two points, though other are equally important. I wanted to inform the audience that Rwanda has been acknowledged by the UN Water during their country case study on acceleration of SDG 6 as one of 3 performers at global level. So this shows that we did a lot to accelerate the SDG 6. For the part on the side of investment, I just want to say that we have completed a comprehensive study on wash gap finance analysis to understand deep on what are the needs, what are the gaps, and how can we fill those gaps. So we believe that this study, it is going to inform at technical level and financial level on what we need to do as the government, as the country, to reach out the global, the universal access, leaving no one behind. We have made tangible progress in achievement of water and sanitation. However, we are still having a low household level connection. So far, we have 18% of the safely managed systems, but we have a goal of achieving 50% of connections at household level towards the end of 2029, the NST2 end. But we are doing a lot. We are making it's not only the government initiative, but opening the gates to the public financing, to the private financing. And so far we have managed to have 2 private banks who launched their products to support water and sanitation. And hopefully we hope that other banks will be interested, other partners. Another initiative that came into investment in water, especially on safely managed systems, came from the partners, one of the partners, World Vision International. So instead only of focusing on extending water supply connection, they thought about guaranteeing the private operator so that people can have loans that are secured to connect them. Since we started this initiative last year, it was launched last year in August, and until now we are counting around 1,000 household new connections. So we are planning to extend these initiatives to other partners so that we don't only focus on new or the extension or the new networks, but also thinking on how people can have water in their homes so that they can reduce this time to go to fetch water. And you talked about the symposium that we are planning in Kigali. Yes, we are having a symposium on water and sanitation system leadership. It is happening from 17 to 21st August 2026. Why did we thought about this? We thought about this, you know there is this Africa Union themes, these UN water conferences, the projects, but none is thinking about the leadership, specifically on the leadership. So we are having different themes, 6 dialogues. First one will be on the high-level political, and to bring together high-level to chart and share agenda to credit investment to water and sanitation sector. The second dialogue will be on public finance, to focus on making financial credibility a defining feature of water and sanitation systems in all Africa. The third one will be on regulation and accountability. There we want to address the actions required to improve regulations and accountability across the continent and address the structure roots of failure. The fourth one, it will be on professionalism. Fifth, system reforms and investment. The last will be on Africa Youth Solutions. Leaving the youth behind will not be a good idea. So I hope to see you all in Kigali in August. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's great to hear the great progress that's taking place in Rwanda. And we actually had our development congress in Kigali in 2023, and we saw for ourselves some of that progress. I'd like to now come back to the issue of Leave No One Behind, that agenda, because it is really at the core of this interactive dialogue on water for people. And I'm pleased to invite now Richard Thorsten, who's the Chief Insights Officer at Water.org, to address this question. So Richard, can I ask you also, because we've already heard something about this, to reflect on what you've heard so far, and really to focus on this issue of how we advance the Leave No One Behind agenda before 2030, particularly in the context of some of these changes that we're facing. Please, Richard.
Thank you, Kala, and I appreciate the invitation to speak with everyone today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you with 5 key messages when we talk about water for people, leaving no one behind, and the intersection of that with investment. So first of all, the ambition that we've had to leave no one behind without financing is simply not delivered over the past few years. So we talked a lot about the UN water pledges in 2023. They were a great start. 60% of those pledges had no funding or financing attached. We all know that there's a tremendous investment gap between what's needed and what we're currently spending and investing. And so we need to move from pledges to real investment pathways and opportunities to build on that success. The second point I want to mention is that demand won't wait. So my colleague talked about this, right? We all know the stats around universal coverage and the gaps that we have. People in poverty know what water is worth, and many of them are not going to wait for the next election or the next gift. They're investing right now in their own water and sanitation solutions. So my colleague from Rwanda talked a little bit about this, and I want to reference it as it relates to water.org. Today we've reached 85 million people with access to water and sanitation through microfinance. 85% of those people live in poverty. 90% of those borrowers are women. And so this is a real opportunity that we believe should be better incorporated when we talk about financing and reaching everyone. Third, when it comes to capital, I want to make a quick analogy. Like water systems, we need to fix the leaks, we need to unplug the bottlenecks, and we need to expand the pipeline. So from the bottom up, we need more affordable capital to households and the enterprises that serve them. From the top down, we need to invest more, and we also need to spend more of what's being allocated. We need better financial data and transparency, as Bruce and Cecilia had alluded to. And we need to ensure that we're spending effectively on outcomes like service delivery and efficiency. Member states will need to find the best recipe for them. So let me give you an example. In some cases, that will mean more subsidies or better targeted subsidies in the way that they spend their money. In other cases, it may be using a portion of what they spend on blended finance instruments to bring in some of that private capital that's necessary to fill that investment gap. Fourth, let's build to last. So what do I mean by that? We talked a little bit about resilience. We need to invest in resilient infrastructure and services. We need to invest in vulnerable communities and fragile communities. And we need to invest in what I call resilient finance. So let's find ways to catalyze local finance, local development banks, local bonds, give the opportunities for member states and local governments to work together to bring in more finance to the system. And then finally, as we've talked a little bit about on this panel and beyond, let's focus on solutions and progress over perfection. So let's not wait until a year to develop new goals. Let's start developing goals now and then report on the impact in December when we come together in the UAE. Let's talk about strategies, but also let's talk about measures of success or signposts so that we know how we're performing on those strategies. We also need to be clear about who we will not leave behind. So yesterday at the stakeholder meeting, we had a very interesting discussion about what voices are we leaving behind in the discussion. And a lady raised her hand and said, what about the digital divide? What about people that lack access to digital systems? I hadn't thought about that, and I think many people probably don't think about that when they think about leaving no one behind. We need to be clear about that, and we also need to be clear about where the money's coming from and where it's going. We have the leadership, we have the experience and the expertise in this room and amongst our peers. So let's make this work. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Rich, for clearly articulating those 5 points. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to move quickly to the next intervention, which really focuses on the link between humanitarian actions and the wider development agenda. And so I'm pleased now to invite Mr. Thilo Panzer-Bieter, Chair of the German WASH Network, to address this question. So Thilo, can I ask you, in your opinion, what processes do you think should be strengthened and prioritized? And connected to that, what concrete actions need to be taken to improve the nexus of humanitarian and development aspects in water and sanitation? Over to you, Thilo.
Thank you very much, Carla, for that question. Honorable dignitaries and co-chairs, thank you very much for Senegal and UAE. I would like to start with that together with UNDESA, giving us the trust to organize that stakeholder day we were talking about just a second ago that we had yesterday, and I wanted to start with that big thank you, and then related to the question, I think particularly in times of limited funding, human rights should be our guiding beacon for investments, policies, and implementation. And in the spirit of system strengthening and teamwork, specifically on that issue, I'd like to say that we feel that capacity building is a key element for the realization of the human rights. On the one hand, for the rights holders, encouraging them to understand their rights, but also with regard to local government and administration, also assisting there with capacity building for how those two elements come together. I also feel that, and this is sort of what you were saying at the beginning, Cecilia and Bruce, it's very much about targeting. And one of the locations that I think where we can have, on the one hand, the reaching of vulnerable groups have our biggest return on investments and also link to other sectors, health and education, would be Washington institutions, looking at both schools and healthcare facilities. And of course, vulnerable, fragile settings should be in our focus. No need to explain why, and climate change will increase that demand. And I think there should be large concern with reduction in funding that humanitarian and development actors may go back to their core mandate. Humanitarian actors saying it's about immediate life-saving and forgetting that it's important to invest also in, the fragile contexts we're talking about pertain with, exist over a longer time. And we need to think of system strengthening at an early onset, learn from each other in the assessment phase of demands. And and therefore I think it's very, very much about targeting and the efficient use of our resources, and that's where the humanitarian development nexus comes in, which in fragile settings is also a contribution to peace building. So I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tilo, for that very comprehensive but also concise response. And this recognition that it's really important to try and combine and work collectively in terms of both humanitarian and the impacts and the interventions we have on water and sanitation. Now, to the final question, an important thread running through all of our discussions, and we've heard it mentioned, most recently with what Rich said and also what Tilo said, and it's about resilience, particularly in the face of climate change. And this need to move beyond just thinking about infrastructure as the primary measure of success, but to focus much more on the service outcomes themselves, things like equity, quality, and sustainability. So I'm pleased to invite now Ms. Meena Guli, the founder and chief executive officer of the Thirst Foundation. Meena, can I ask you to just answer that question? What incentives do you think can help build resilient wash systems where we're really looking beyond infrastructure and looking at service outcomes? Over to you, Meena.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just for a bit of context, many of you may know over the last few years I've run extremely long distances in some of the most far-flung places on the planet. I've run across deserts like the Atacama in Antarctica. I've run down rivers like the Colorado, the Amazon, and the Nile. And I've run up to the tops of glaciers in places in Europe and in Asia that are melting faster than you can possibly imagine. Along the way, I've met hundreds of people who have shared their water stories. I have met women and girls in India who risk their lives every single day to fetch water for their families. I've met kids in Ghana who are scratching in the dirt to find groundwater. And I've met transport workers on the Rhine who are watching the river drop to historic levels and with it, watching their livelihoods disappear. I'm telling you this because these are not numbers in a report. These are real people living in real places, and they are living what the UN report made very clear last week. We are no longer managing a water crisis. We are managing water bankruptcy. And this, not inflation, not debt, This is the real liquidity crisis of our time. As one of the local guides said to me when I was hiking up to the top of the glaciers, "Mina, please tell these people directly that time for soft language is over. We need real action, and we need it now." He's not alone. Too many times I have been in places where the human right to water exists, but the delivery does not. Communities in Kenya in despair as the wells built for them by well-meaning NGOs have run dry. Places where the taps exist, but the water does not. I've run down rivers that no longer meet the sea, lakes that once held water but where boats are now lying stranded in the desert sands, places where infrastructure exists but the system underneath is completely failing, and places where it is obvious that rights without resilient systems have become broken promises. Let me be really honest. In many of these places, I don't think that we're failing because of lack of effort. In fact, looking around this room today, the time and energy that you are all dedicating to this issue is testament to that. We are failing because of fragmentation. Governments working in silos, donors funding what they can measure, and NGOs doing incredible work, but doing it alone. And water has become separated from food, energy, climate, nature, and finance. But in a world of water bankruptcy, fragmented solutions don't just underperform, they accelerate failure. We are at a crossroads. We can continue down with the status quo, more reports, more headlines, more promises for a future we all know we cannot deliver. Or we can choose a different kind of leadership. Leadership with the courage to reach across traditional boundaries, the discipline to align across mandates, and the commitment to collective outcomes even when there is a personal or a professional cost. Right here in Senegal, we have an opportunity to make the next 3 years truly matter, an opportunity to move beyond the voluntary commitments and fragmented initiatives we've seen too long, and instead to lock in a political process for water that is durable, accountable, and fit for the reality of the water bankruptcy we see. One with real political ownership, meaningful negotiated outcomes, and system-wide accountability. Water bankruptcy is not a failure of knowledge. It is ultimately a failure of coordination. And therefore, it's one that we can and we must change.
Thank you.
Between now and December, we need to deliberately break the silos that keep water trapped in a narrow sector and bring finance, economic, supply chain, city and ecosystems into the room, not to announce more fragmented projects, but to design coordinated finance solutions that protect water at its source, manage demand downstream, and put us on a credible pathway back to water security and away from water bankruptcy.
Thank you very much, Mina.
What we do now, I've got one more thing I would like to say. It's a call to action, because I think for too long in environments like this, we speak, but we need to act. What we do now between now and December will determine what path we are on. Today, please, all of you, my ask is, please let's have the courage to choose to end fragmentation and to start working together to build the water resilient systems that we need for people, for the planet, and for all of our futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Mina. So I'd like to, we're out of time, so I'd like to thank all the panelists for their focused and complementary contributions. And I think we've heard some very clear messages, realizing that the human rights to water and sanitation requires enforceable decisions, not commitments alone. And we had a very good intervention from the mayor from Gambia. That resilience depends on strong systems capable of withstanding all these external pressures that we're facing, and that leaving no one behind before 2030 will really require explicit prioritization, alignment, and sustained political leadership. So if we can just show our appreciation to the panelists again. And with that, I will hand back to the two co-chairs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we all agree that was a fantastic discussion. Let's give them another round of applause. So we're going to open the floor just for a brief. Okay. I think the co-chairs, we decided to call for 4 member states, followed by 4 stakeholders. So we're going to open the plenary for those discussions. The 4 member states, okay. Ethiopia is 1. Second, Federation of Swiss, the Swiss Federation, yes. The third, Pakistan. And then the 4th would be Russian Federation, sorry. So you are second. And the 4th would be Liberia. I see Hungary as well. All right, we will balance it out for the last position. So we'll start with Ethiopia. So you just have about 3 minutes to bring your issues to the fore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, co-chairs. Thank you, moderator and panelists. And I would like to thank the Republic of Senegal and the United Arab Emirates for hosting us. And I would like to thank Cecilia and Bruce for showing us the gaps. And it clearly shows that we have a very big problem. Yes, we are lagging behind and we are not catching up. The question is why? That's the most important thing we need to ask. The political commitment is there, but we lack something. And as my sister said, the last speaker, one is fragmentation. But after all, the political commitment plus the financial commitment from individual states, we will pay also a reward. That's what we have seen in Ethiopia. Over 10 years, we have tremendous progress, for instance, when it comes to access to drinking water. And we have found out that energy is the main enabler of ensuring human rights to water and sanitation. And for that reason, we have built Africa's biggest dam, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Energy is key. And we did this, alone. The financing aspect was important for us, and it's a self-financing project. And it has helped us, and it's helping us to reach to the rural people and to ensure access to water and ensure the human right to water. And if you look at Africa, for instance, 70% of global population lacking access to clean water and sanitation is in sub-Saharan Africa. And if we ask again, one of the main gaps, it's a lack of big infrastructures. And this is the missing link. Imagine the Democratic Republic of the Congo and its potential to ensure energy accessibility, which will also have a multiplier effect. And that's one most important thing that we need to focus on. And the second one is states.
You're wrapping up?
Yes, I'm wrapping up, Honorable Minister. And the other one, and the most important one, we believe, is states should guarantee that water management laws, policies, and programs are firmly rooted in national priorities. Innovative financing is another one, and genuine cooperation, especially in transboundary water courses, is key, because it will have mobilized financing from development partners. My last point is to ensure adequate integration of water and sanitation into the post-2030 agenda as an enabler of progress on sustainable development is key as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ethiopia have a beautiful story of their recently opened, commissioned dam. Fantastic. We'll now move to the Russian Federation. That's at the back. He's raised his hand at the back, yes. And we come down to Pakistan. That'll be next. And then Liberia and Hungary will share. I'm a bit biased, I'm half Hungarian, so I can't see my ambassador, and not allow him to speak.
So,
yes, Russian.
Thank you very much for giving us the floor, and as we're taking the floor for the first time, let us extend our sincerest thanks to the government of Senegal for hosting us here, and also many thanks go to our co-chairs, Ghana and Switzerland. Thank you for that.
Can you speak a bit louder?
Definitely. Thank you. That's what I was saying. So I would like to elaborate a little bit on the issue we have raised during this discussion. And this issue is leaving no one behind. And what is the real criteria for this no one to be left behind? Is it really only people living through fragile situation? Or is it people living, I don't know, in rural area? Or should we separate people by gender, nationality, etc.? Is it really an inclusive attitude? So when we are speaking about leaving no one behind, it should be the people, everyone, like not singling out any group, any particular country, any particular region. So what we think that the particular attention should be given, the criteria should be, so their communities living in areas with challenging climatic and hydrological conditions. And such conditions may be determined by average annual amount of precipitation, affected by drought, extreme temperatures, etc. Are we really going to speak only about some groups of people, or are we going to speak about the people in general? So what we would like to underline is that we should really leave no one behind, and discussing in the UAE in December really everybody and not the groups. So, and we do really hope that our co-chairs make this dialogue really inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's true, we shouldn't leave, well, everyone. No one should be left behind. That is the English language, I think. So Pakistan, please give him a round. Yes. Pakistan is in front, in the front row. The lady with the beautiful gray hair.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much to the host government Senegal and the co-chairs and all the wonderful panelists. And we had a wonderful discussion, and it was really a candid discussion. And thank you so much for the opportunity to take the floor on behalf of my country, Pakistan. I'm Saima Sayyed, the ambassador of Pakistan to Senegal. So I would like to say, Madam Chair, that Pakistan fully agrees that action must be accelerated to secure the human right to safe drinking water and sanitation. In response, we are strengthening coordination across water sanitation and hygiene policies, working closely with our local and provincial governments. The National Drinking Water Policy aims to ensure access to clean, safe, affordable and sufficient drinking water while reducing inequalities in access, particularly for underserved communities. However, national efforts alone will not suffice. For downstream communities, access to safe drinking water and sanitation can also be affected by actions taken beyond national borders. Disruptions or weaponization of shared water flows can directly undermine the enjoyment of fundamental human rights, including the rights to water, food, and health and dignity. Safeguarding water for people therefore also requires cooperation, transparency, and adherence to obligations under international law in relation to shared river basins. Looking ahead to the 2026 UN Water Conference, Pakistan believes that advancing water for people requires sustained focus on adequate financing, capacity building, and international cooperation. And of course, adherence to obligations under international law in relation to shared river basins. Without addressing these fundamentals, progress on SDG 6 will remain elusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the practicality of the situation we find ourselves in. Now we move to Liberia. Liberia is on row 4, 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the moderator. Thank you to the distinguished panelists. I'm from Liberia. I'm the head of the WASH Commission in Liberia. Thank you very much so kindly. For those of us who know the history of the SDGs, we know sometime in 2014, the former president of Liberia, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, participated in the formulation and the development of the SDGs. The conference was held under the auspices of the high-level panel of experts. These global goals were set in a high-level developed country and set also for countries with very low development. Most of these countries are in Africa and Asia, where water sanitation and hygiene infrastructure are either grossly inadequate or poorly managed. Our particular reference to the SDGs is Goal 6.2, Safely Managed Sanitation. During this conference, this goal should be under review because the best of our efforts supported by well-off countries, these countries seem to be going nowhere. It's worth noting that the advent of developing these goals, particularly 6.2, many countries in Europe and others were already scoring high-level development in sanitation in total contrast to countries in Africa and Asia. This journey to 2030 was not set on equal footing. We should understand that sanitation is properly in the human habitat domain and cannot succeed without proper dwelling, especially since this goal eliminates shared facilities and cannot be counted. So what is the narrative after 10 years? Well, despite the numerous investments by countries themselves, multilaterals, friendly governments, and development partners, the results are dismal and cannot take us to 2030. For example, Liberia, a former member of the high-level panel of experts, have only achieved 3 to 4% out of 100% for safely managed sanitation.
You should be wrapping up.
Yes, ma'am. Is it time that this conference rethink the way forward, or we continue to dismal failure? Or should this conference now reconsider and audit the achievements thus far in view of resetting realistic goals and targets, taking account of country context? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take Hungary as the +1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the panelists for this very intriguing discussion on the floor. Let me start by commending Ghana and Switzerland for undertaking the lead on the interactive dialogue on water for people. It requires no further explanation why this is so important. We are all aware that the world is not on track to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 6.1 and 6.2 on universal access to water and sanitation. So instead of listing challenges, allow me to bring your attention to a success story, an instrument that drives progress towards fulfillment of the human right to water and sanitation in the pan-European region. The Protocol on Water and Health, supported jointly by the WHO Regional Office for Europe and the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. It serves as a platform for cooperation reaching across sectors and across borders on equitable access to safely managed water and sanitation, including in particularly vulnerable settings such as schools and healthcare facilities. The protocol is also a hub of technical work, developing policy documents, guidelines, and tools which assist progress on the country level. While the protocol is a regional instrument, these tools can be used by any country, regardless of its region or socio-economic status. Hungary chaired the Protocol on Water and Health in the past triennium. The 7th meeting of the parties, closing this period, hosted by Hungary in November 2025, brought together 230 participants from more than 40 countries across the pan-European region and beyond. The meeting of the parties featured a dedicated side event on the 2026 UN Water Conference, for which we are indebted to the co-hosts countries of Senegal and the UAE. The recommendations of the meeting of the parties were submitted as an input to the water conference. The protocol is a growing community, with 3 countries exceeding since 2023. We call upon countries of the pan-European region to join the protocol and all countries to benefit from the wealth of resources developed under the protocol. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just on time. Thank you. Thank you, Member States, for these complementary views to this discussion. Now I would also call upon 4 stakeholders. More countries. 4 stakeholders. If stakeholders don't raise their names, we will take you. 4 stakeholders. All right, stakeholders, then we'll go to India, because the stakeholders, I've just seen 1 hand up. 2. All right, she.
Thank you.
All right, 3, 4.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, please.
Excellencies, distinguished representatives of governments and partner agencies. The call for water for people is a call to governments to uphold one of their most fundamental obligations, the human right to water, which is inseparable from the rights to health, dignity, and well-being. This right is not aspirational, it is legally recognized and morally binding, yet for millions of people, access to water still depends on income, location, or legal status. The consequences are immediate and severe: preventable disease, lost education, increased care burdens for women, and unavoidable loss of life. This is not a consequence of scarcity alone, but of policy choices. Governments, as primary duty bearers, must ensure that water allocation and services prioritize people, particularly the poor, rural communities, informal settlements, displaced populations, and those living in climate and conflict-affected contexts. First, access to water must be guaranteed based on need, equity, and dignity, not the ability to pay. When water is unaffordable or unsafe, it directly undermines public health and community well-being. Water cannot be governed solely through market logic. Governments retain the responsibility to regulate, finance, and deliver services that protect affordability, safety, and universal access. Second, the realization of the human right to water requires political will, accountable governance, and meaningful participation. Governments must ensure that communities, civil society, women, youth workers, and other right holders are actively involved in planning, monitoring, and oversight. Empowering people and civil society to claim their rights improves service quality, strengthens health outcomes, and builds trust. Legal and institutional frameworks must also be enforced to prevent the weaponization, contamination, corporate capture, or deliberate denial of water in times of crisis and conflict. Third, governments must strengthen public water systems through adequate public financing and climate-resilient investment. So, Excellencies, the pathways are clear, the evidence is clear, the solutions exist. What is required now is implementation, accountability, and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't mention your organization.
My name is Lajana Manandar, and I belong to Freshwater Action Network, South Asia.
All right, thank you. There was one on that side. You can get the mic to him quickly. He raised, over there. He raised his hand over there. To be fair, we are spreading it out across the room. So there's no one from that side yet, so. Quickly, please, give him the mic. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Chair. I want to comment on some of our colleagues. When we go to mobilize finance, this is important, yes, but it should guided by sound economic and social and environmental assessment. Hydropower, yes, it's important, but we should consider as alongside alternatives such as solar and wind generation, which are more and more cost competitive. and place less pressure on freshwater systems. When assessment to go beyond the levelized cost of electricity to include broader social, economical, and environmental and transboundary impacts, solar PV often show an advantage. And also recent global cost data shows that the levelized cost of electricity of utility scale solar PV is less than the hydropower generation. It goes to 0.04 cent. It goes to 4 cent US dollar compared to 6 cent US dollar for kilowatt hour for new hydropower. So supporting the needs to direct finance towards the most effective and sustainable options is important rather than focusing only on hydropower. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the last one, I think we are running out of time. Our rapporteur will have to. The youth, you raise your hand. You should raise your hand early. You are young. So when they ask to raise hand, you should be the first to raise your hand. I'm sorry, we have one on this side. Gentleman on this side. The youth, you'll be the last to speak.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and lucky last. So my name is Amgad El-Mahdi. I'm the head of the Middle East with the Green Climate Fund, the largest multilateral fund. And I think my contribution here, it's really as a follow-up from the previous speaker and also through the panel. I'm wondering, like, when we speak about like water for people and no one behind, the word like keeping water as a public good and affordability for end user, and how this will be linked with the other dialogue like investment for water. I think we have to maintain and raise and flag it very clearly, like investment for water, yes, it's required. Quality and quantity of finance, yes, it's required. But also we have to ensure, as we keep talking as investor about bankability of water projects, we need also to talk about affordability for water projects. So we need to come with a solution that become non-affordable. So I think it's good if we are stressing on affordability under water for people and also streamline water for people with investment for water as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last with the youth. Please get the mic to them. The mic, please. Who's speaking for the youth? No, the youth. No, the youth. Madam. The youth. You have to be a bit aggressive, you know. Get the mic when it's coming close to you. Huh? Don't sit there, you know, expect it to be brought to you. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much. Thank you, co-chairs. And I was aggressive. I walked all the way from up there to come here. So my name is Samuel James Pator. I'm the Vice President of the Water Youth Network. Building on today's discussions, the Global Youth Movement for Water that I also represent wishes to move beyond general statements and offer 4 solution-oriented recommendations. Our objective is not simply participation, but also measurable action and implementation. First, water, sanitation, and hygiene must no longer be treated as an auxiliary service or auxiliary services. They should be systemically integrated into national health systems and humanitarian response frameworks, recognizing WASH as essential public infrastructure. Secondly, climate and blended finance must prioritize locally led WASH interventions, supported by clear and transparent national budget commitments to ensure sustainability and equity. Third, as we look towards the 2026 United Nations Water Conference, voluntary pledges alone will be insufficient, particularly for private sector engagement in major water-related investments. And finally, investing in youth must go beyond engagement to include education, skills development, employment pathways, and meaningful access to decision-making spaces. Sustained investment in youth as water professionals is essential to strengthening long-term capacity and accountability at all levels. These recommendations have all been included with a common youth strategy that youth networks from around the world gathered and agreed, and we wish you can help us taking it forward. Thank you very much, and we look forward to your kind consideration and cooperation.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to conclude the interaction here. There will be more opportunities as we go forward. So I would now like to give the floor to the rapporteur. Where do we have our rapporteur? So we have Sunny Singh from WaterAid, who will be reporting in cooperation with Fiona Gore and Martina Rama. But Sunny will be talking.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your engagement. My name is Sunny Singh, and I'm from an NGO called WaterAid. We focus on progressing water sanitation and hygiene in some of the poorest communities around the world. And I've had the honour of being the rapporteur for this session. Whilst each actor has their own priorities, as we've seen, there is much that we agree on. We're not starting from scratch. We've heard both today and for quite some time in other sessions the importance of equity, of leaving nobody behind, of inclusive governance. We know these pieces are vital. We now need to identify and progress specific instruments to make these values concrete. We've heard about the need to not stay in silos. Let's action that today with member state water leads here today working to engage other ministries with the support of the sector, going from fragmentation to those collective solutions. We've been reminded of the reason we're here, to serve communities that are not in this room and most impacted by the wash crisis, by the Mayor of Banjul, highlighting how the lack of action impacts women and girls the most. Thanks for bringing the voice of your people through that letter. Some groups are left behind more than others, and we do need to act on that. And on that thread, we've heard about the importance of targeted and innovative financing, which better serves those very communities, with that ethos, again, of leaving nobody behind. And reaching those communities in the spaces they rely on most, such as healthcare facilities and in schools, is crucial. I'd like to end by repeating the call by many for implementation and action. There are many stakeholders and countries already taking a lot of action on a daily basis. We now need leader-level endorsements to fast-track these great initiatives because people are feeling the effects of the lack of political prioritization today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rapporteur, for being so brief. So we seem to have an urgent intervention from Mauritania. My co-chair actually forfeits her closing remarks, so you can make a very short intervention. 1 minute, please.
Donc bonjour à tous, c'est Mariam Gaïdé de la Mauritanie, membre de l'Observatoire national des droits des femmes et des filles. Donc souvent, nous à l'Observatoire, nous parlons souvent de l'ODD5, qui vraiment parle de la femme et les droits de la femme. Mais je pense que le l'ODD6 est plus intéressant parce que le l'ODD6 est pour le peuple, pour tout le monde, soit homme ou femme. Il est vraiment nécessaire de parler sur cette ODD. Donc, vu les progrès que l'État mauritanien a déployés pour l'eau, jusqu'à présent, nous sommes très très loin à l'horizon de 2030. Nous sommes très loin de l'EDD6 parce que la moitié de la Mauritanie est une vulnérabilité qui n'ont pas accès à l'eau. L'eau, c'est juste dans les grandes villes. Donc, à l'intérieur du pays, il n'y a pas d'eau. Donc, maintenant, notre question, c'est comment la communauté internationale peut-elle soutenir la Mauritanie dans la réalisation de l'EDD6 d'ici 2030 en face aux effets des changements climatiques sur les ressources d'eau et d'assainissement. Et surtout qu'en assainissement, dans la ville de Nouakchott, s'il pleut, on a plein de problèmes. Et partout dans la Mauritanie. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for making the linkage to women and girls really important, and then of course insisting on sanitation. So thank you very much. This was an animated conversation, and we really do look forward on this journey towards December 2026 to conduct this dialogue on behalf of the co-chairs, Ghana and Switzerland. Thank you for this very engaged discussion. We have been listening today. We will continue to listen in the coming month. We will organize a series of virtual events and also physical discussions, including trying to have and wanting to have a really large and inclusive conversation, including all population groups, in particular those most vulnerable we've just heard about, and also including indigenous people. So we will leverage global and local platforms to build on this, and we have a clear ambition. It's not a talk shop, right? This has been repeated, and we also repeat this ourselves. It's a call to action. We want concrete steps, concrete actions out of this interactive dialogue on water for people, concrete actions for the year 2026 and for the years to come beyond 2030. So we look forward to working with you on realizing this ambition together. It's an ambitious journey that will need a lot of energy, a lot of acumen. It's like a long distance run. But we will get there. We will get to the end of 26 with good, ambitious results, and implementation will start already early, and then we will continue towards 2030. So thank you very much for the animated discussions. There will be much more time for debate on other occasions, including here throughout the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Sama